Hi, so today I'm talking to David, and I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is David, and I'm currently a design engineer at Apple Martin. I graduated with a degree in civil engineering, and I'm currently a designer for the public sector, where I deal with roadworks and utility works. And my clients are mostly the public, which involves municipalities, translinks, or government officials.
Okay, so on those types of projects, then, like, what do you do in them? What's your day-to-day kind of look like?
Yeah, for sure. I started off with writing the proposal for them, where the cities or the client, they usually issue out what's called an RFP or request for proposal. And then they usually have some requirements in terms of their scope of work and what they're expecting to the final project to look like. I then come in, tell them how I will deliver that project and at what cost. So after the proposal is done, we bid against other companies as well and other designers. If we are successful and we win, we end up going into a kickoff meeting where we finalize the scope of work. And then afterwards, I'm currently managing some junior staff, junior designers as well. So, and at the same time, I'll organize and coordinate with sub-consultants as well. So in that sense, my day-to-day is kind of taking the project from the very, very start, from conception to getting the product, winning the project, making the money, to designing the project, guiding the junior staff to maybe design a project as well, to finally issuing the project out into tender form and getting it constructed, essentially.
Okay, that sounds pretty interesting. What would you say then? Do you say you do a lot of design and drafting and a lot of CAD work, or is it more on the tender side on that kind of stuff?
Oh, I wish I do more drafting and design. That's when I first started. My role was almost entirely drafting. However, as my, experience level increases, as my proficiency have increased, I have done less and less drafting, unfortunately. So instead, my role and my, responsibility has evolved to more of guiding the junior staff, mentoring them to do the design. I will overlook and review their design as well, and then once we get into the tender form, tender stage, I would be, assisting the project manager in procuring a contractor on the job. So my role is more on the design phase, but the less drafting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thinking back then on your recent career, can you think of any really good days that really stand out to you, days that kind of, I guess, make the job worth it, if you will?
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, finishing a job, that's probably the best day. Um, winning the job and finishing the job are probably the two best days. These proposals, I'm not sure if you've seen these around before. I'm happy to share some proposals at a later date or something, but they can be like 70, 80 pages, right? So these are massive, massive proposals. It takes a long time, right? It usually takes you like weeks to prepare one. And if you don't win it, it's just weeks of effort down the drain, right? So writing that proposal and winning it, it feels very accomplished, right? All of that hard work makes it worth it, essentially. At the same time, working on the job, there's not in civil engineering, at least, we deal with so many different aspects, right? We deal with the public, we deal with the cities, we deal with government officials, environment, we deal with so many stakeholders who have so many different inputs. Everyone wants something different, right? So no project ever goes 100% smoothly. So by the time we actually do finish a project and actually get it constructed, it takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of coordination to get there. And once it is done, you see this beautiful product that makes our community so much better. And that just, makes the job worth it.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear you're loving it. That's really great. One thing I like to ask civil engineers, especially, is how much time do you usually spend in the field versus in the office? I know you're probably a little more in the office, but it's just a question I like to ask.
Yeah, I really think it depends on, I guess, the company need, the project need, and your personal capability, I suppose. Personally, I'm more suited for the office, and I personally don't like going on the field either. I'm not a very, oh, let's get down dirty. No. So for me, I would say I'm like 99.9% in the office. However, as a junior staff, when you first start, a lot of times for example, ESC or erosion and sediment control inspections, it's literally just when it rains, go out and take some pictures. As simple as that. Something like that, it's easier to get a co-op student or a junior staff to go on and do that. And it's cheaper too. So in the beginning, when your charge out rate is lower, I would say maybe like 70-30, 70 in the office, 30 in the field. If you work in a field that's more, say, stormwater resource, coastal engineering, things that requires a lot more real life data, maybe it's going to be like 40 in the office, 60 in the field. And if you want to specialize in something, like if you want to dedicate yourself to construction, right? Engineering is such a wide, broad band that one, I guess, more specific sector is specializing in construction management. If you want to do that, then I would say maybe 20% in the office and 80% in the field instead. So it really depends on yourself, what you specialize in, right?
Yeah, that kind of mirrors what a lot of civil engineers have said. As you start early, you're in the field because you don't get paid much, or compared to older engineers, it costs less. And then depending on which part of civil engineering you go into, then that also affects it as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. What would you say are some pros and cons then you've experienced by choosing this as your career path?
Oh, so many cons. There's quite, as anything, right? There's always pros and cons. The biggest con, I have to say, is the starting salary. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. It sucks, right? It takes a long time for you to actually make a lot more money. And in the very beginning, it really feels like you're just another cog in the machine. And it really feels like um, what you put out doesn't seem to matter in the grand scheme of it all. Especially because for engineers, we go through this EIT process and then getting our PH. So realistically speaking, your career doesn't actually start till you get your PH. And so that slow uptick is one of my biggest cons. And as far as I can tell, as far as I can see, it's also one of the biggest reasons why people leave engineering despite getting a degree in engineering. However, there's so many pros as well. One of the biggest pro for civil engineering is the fact that I get to meet so many different people. For civil engineers, we wear so many different hats, right? We're designers, we're project managers, we're project engineers, and we're also public consultants. So for me, being in the field for the last 4 or 5 years or so, I've met so many different electrical engineers, geotechnical engineers. I've met other structural engineers, and I also met government officials, right? I've gone to city halls to meet with the mayor, to meet with the directors of engineering. I've also met a lot of the public as well. So we have public information meeting, public consultation, and you try to hear the opinions of the public as well, right? And it's kind of like knowing your neighbor. You've lived next to them your whole life, but you've never really talked to them. And so this kind of gives you an opportunity to meet all of your neighbors at the same time, essentially. And at the same time, we'll also talk to a lot of contractors as well, right? So all different broads, all different breeds of people, just everywhere. You really meet every single person well, not every person, but you get to meet such a wide range of people in all walks of life, right? And I personally really enjoy that. Um, Another pro is the fact that what you're doing, what you're designing at the end of the day, if it gets built, or once it does get built, it does make our communities better. It makes your life easier. It makes your kids' life easier. And it makes your parents' life easier. It affects, it directly affects our surrounding and the people that surrounds us as well. Some more pros, man. Honestly, there's quite a few. Some more pros would be the, I guess the sense of fraternity. Once you're an engineer, you go through that iron ring ceremony, and it just feels like you're not alone anymore, right? Just the other engineers are around you and who's always there to be willing to support you and help you out. And as part of that whole EIT to PN stage, there's a mentorship and mentee stage as well, right? And you really get to see yourself progress through that stage too, where you start as a mentee, but later on you become the mentor. So at first you might be someone who needs guidance. Later on you become the the person who guides, I guess. So in that sense, it really helps with the fact that you're getting thrown into this field, the real world, I guess. But there's people around you to help you out, really. Honestly, there's some more pros. Money is also a big one too. To be fair and honest, it's steady money, it's easy money too. To be honest, and the growth does increase quite quickly. So if you can bite down and stick it through to that point, good. If you can't, so be it, right?
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of my co-op actually, because you mentioned feeling like a cog in the big wheel, like you don't what you're doing before you get to your PN, just kind of minuscule compared to what you kind of thought it was. Like when I went into engineering, I thought like first co-op job, I'm gonna get called into the conference room. There's gonna be a huge table, everyone's there. But that's not really what it was. I spent a lot of my time walking through fields and changing colors on drawings. So that is something to keep in mind if you're considering going into engineering for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And especially too, like my girlfriend's a nurse. Obviously, she saves lives. That's her job. And then compared to what she does, I just play with pretty colors on a computer. So, and of course, it might seem that way, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. So then what would you advise to students considering going into civil engineering, into design engineering? Like just what they could do in high school, maybe to get a taste of it, or skills they could develop to kind of be more prepared?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really great question. There's I've came across two programs personally. One is the so UBC offers this. I believe it's called the STEM program or something, but it's a organization within UBC that promotes STEM to high school students. I can't recall what the name is. Was it Outreach? But essentially, it's a program where they UBC gets professionals from the field, just like what you're doing right now, to talk to students, to talk to high school students, and kind of give them a first look on engineering as a broad whole career. So that's one. And then the second one is honestly just reach out to a engineering company. Nowadays in high school, students learn a lot about software. Students learn about, I guess, AutoCAD as well. And, going out taking pictures, anyone can do that, right? High school students can do that too. So my company in particular, we've hired a few high school students here and there just for like the summer, just to kind of give them a feel, a look of what engineers do and what a day-to-day is. And sorry, the outreach program I was referring to from UBC was called Gearing Up. So yeah, I mean, students, high school students can either participate in Gearing Up or just look for a company and just work for them for a month or a few months or something.
Okay, well, thank you a lot for all that information. I really appreciate taking the time today to come and share your experiences and your thoughts. So yeah, thank you.